mounted back up, having all kinds of fun technical difficulties on a little bit of an old school type of a show, doing this on the old camera. I should say the phone camera. Hope everybody's having a fantastic whatever day you're watching this. So, talking some of the old school bikes tonight. And guys, I gotta tell you, some of my favorite machines are the ones that, well, they're the ones that predate everything that we have today. The ones that kind of were the firsts. You know, you can only have one first. And that's one of the things that I like so much about the old school bikes. Something like the original GSXR 750, the GPZ 900s, the Z1s of the world, the GS 1100s, you know, those bikes. Those are the ones that I truly do like. And what stinks is, as badly as you would love to have one of those bikes, there's so many drawbacks that it is almost preventative to own one of those bikes and to ride it, have a good time with it, because you know you run into parts availability with them, and you run into, you know, frame structural integrity type things. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, what makes those bikes so charming, what makes them so cool. And, you know, are there any bikes today that offer up a similar riding experience to those vintage machines? And how does it really shape up, and how does it measure up today? So for you guys that are new to the live show, guys, welcome. This is basically a background noise generator for guys that just want to have something kind of yammering on in the background, usually motorcycle related, engine related, and that's about it. I mean, we'll talk about bikes. You kind of end up veering off into other topics too, but if you like what you're hearing, do me a favor, hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the bell, share it, do all of that kind of stuff. You would be shocked how much that actually helps a channel, especially nowadays with the way that the algorithms work. It doesn't cost anything, the subscription totally free, and it truly does help the channel in so many ways to grow and to reach new folks. By the way, cool statistics. So YouTube will give you the opportunity to see analytics and to see where folks are watching you from. And I want to take a minute to send a huge shout out and thanks to all of my international viewers. Guys, we are being seen in 47 different countries. Nearly half of my viewership comes from outside of the United States. So guys, thank y'all so much for hanging out. Appreciate each and every one of y'all. Would not do it without you. Tell your friends and have them subscribe too. Anyway, guys, thank y'all so much. But pretty cool, huh? And by the way, Tongo has the highest the highest watch rate. In other words, they watch each video for the longest amount of time. So cool. Thanks. Appreciate it, guys. But anyway, getting back to it, look, the thing is that the vintage bikes are super cool. And the thing is I don't have a true vintage motorcycle. And the reason why I don't have a true vintage bike is because they're very hard to find in rideable condition. And that's one of the bummers of it. One of the bikes that I had always wanted to build was my dad's Z1. And I thought it would have been really cool because my dad was a street racer. His bike was not a fully dedicated drag bike, but it was a bit of a hot rod for its day. And it would be kind of cool to find, you know, a 74 Z1 and just kind of do some of the same things that he had done to that bike from back in the day. But I got to tell you, finding bikes like that are tough, and, you know, frame rigidity wasn't really quite what you'd expect. And so when you start looking at the older bikes from a modern lens, it's pretty easy to dissect them. And the problem is that when it comes to just modern reliability, well, believe it or not, they're actually pretty reliable. I don't know. I've never run across a motorcycle in my life that I couldn't get running. And that's one of the unique things about the carbureted bikes is that if you got spark, you can figure out a way to get fuel in there. If there's any level of compression, guys, that thing is going to fire up and run. And it's just kind of a cool experience. So I've been toying around with the idea of maybe trying to find something old, like an old ass GSXR 750, maybe a GPZ 900, if there's even one available that's out there that's worth buying, and putting together an old school build with no intentions of performance and no expectations whatsoever. Just build a motorcycle that is reliable and fun, but primarily carbureted, because that's what my background is kind of in anyway. I mean, growing up, all the bikes were carbureted back then, and it really didn't start getting into fuel injection until later on, right? So, carburetors just lingered forever with bikes, and well, it'd be kind of cool to get back into that. So if I can find one, I do. There might be enough room in the shop for one more. And if there is enough room in the shop for one more, it would be a bike like that. But the problem there is this. If you find a really nice vintage bike, it usually is going to command a pretty serious price. And there are so many good bikes that are out there now that offer up a vintage riding experience without all of the hassles of owning a vintage motorcycle. I happen to own two, and in a way, three ish with the Daytona. But the Daytona is just an old bike. It's practically 30 years old now. But when you think about it, the Bonneville is also, I mean, you got to remember the Triumph Bonneville is the hot rod of its day. And so my T120 is kind of a more modern take on that bike. And so you could almost call it vintage. I mean, it's at least vintage in its chassis, the way that the chassis is put together, but it's still liquid cooled, and it's still that bike, right? It's still a liquid cooled modern engine, computer, and all that. The GSXR 750. Now, the GSXR 750 is kind of a unique motorcycle when you think about it. And the more I look at that bike, the more it really does offer up a truly vintage riding experience. You would be forgiven, as I hope you would be with me. I always forget that my 750 has a B mode. I always say it doesn't have any rider modes. That's a lie. That's wrong. Or at least I'm incorrect in that statement. It absolutely has riding modes. It has an A and a B mode. You just have to find the button for it, but it does. And so I guess in that respect, well, taking that out of the equation, it doesn't have a quick shifter. It doesn't have ABS. It doesn't have any traction control. Doesn't have any of that stuff. It's got the clock tack, which I freaking love on that bike. And so it is the old school riding experience. It's just that you don't have to buy an old bike for that. And I know that because I go to ride my Daytona, which is, again, coming up on 30 years old. It's the same thing. I mean, they both have gas lights. They don't even have gas gauges, right? So anyway, that's, when it comes to a unique riding experience, you at least have that. But the one bike manufacturer that's out there that is putting, I mean, you can talk about retro style bikes like the Z900, the Z900 Cafe, the XSR 900, all of that. But the thing is, you don't have any manufacturers that make a modern motorcycle that is basically an old motorcycle except for Royal Enfield. Well, again, the GSXR 600 and 750 are kind of outliers here, but I think you understand what I'm talking about. Air-cooled, old school parallel twin. The only modern feature on those bikes is the fact that it's got fuel injection, and that's it. And so again, there are some really cool bikes in that brand that I could absolutely see myself having a ball with. And I can tell you, if you've never ridden one of the Royal Enfield Continental GTs, you've got to go out there and ride one. And the only reason why I say that you have to do it is because if you have any preconceived notions of that brand, of that bike, of that power level, that whatever it might be, if you just go out there and ride one, it's like you're playing with a puppy. It's so much fun and so full of character. It's all these different noises that you're not used to hearing. And it's a lot of noise and a lot of things going on without really any of the responsibility of the speed to go along with it. But it's still punchy. Like, it still has a lot of snap to it. Add in any of the performance, big bore kits, and Royal Enfield's got a 750 version of the Continental GT coming soon, which is a damn good looking bike with that fairing. Next thing you know, you've got a bike that's more vintage cafe racer than anything that anybody else is putting out, including Triumph. So anyway, I have I don't know, I've been so smitten, and I've been thinking about that Continental GT that I rode for the review that had so much snap. It was so much fun. And I was just thinking, my God, this bike is like everything that you kind of wished an old school bike could be. Not overwhelming, not crazy fast, not gonna goat you into pushing it, but just will offer up a freaking blast of a riding experience, and do so in a very simple way. So anyway, I've been kind of mulling over the idea of at some point this year maybe picking up a Continental GT. Just saying that if I were to get another motorcycle, that is the only other bike that I would look at. Again, and the only reason why I say that is I started looking at other bikes that are out there that are of a vintage flavor. And I got to looking at it and I thought, you know what? These bikes, again, frame, structural integrity, a little bit suspect. But when you look at the power output, and this is, trust me, I'm getting somewhere. So look at the power output though. Say like a 1985 GSXR 750, the one that's in the thumbnail of this video. That bike is making 80 horsepower from the factory. Store that in the old noggin for a minute. The Z1 that my dad had, 86 horsepower from the factory. You look at like the GPZ 1100, I think was around 100 horsepower from the factory, and that thing was considered to be a freaking monster in its day. But I think you get an idea. I mean, the old school bikes offered up, at the time was an amazing amount of power at about 100 horsepower, realistically more like 80 or 82, 85 at the most. And they all weighed about 500 pounds. Look, I could get a Conti, big bore that thing with a set of cams, tune it, exhaust, and have a motorcycle that, you wouldn't rail on the thing all the time, would you? I probably would. But I could put a decent set of tires on it, don't really sweat the suspension too much, maybe just a little, and have a proper little hot rod making about, and by the way, the horsepower numbers I'm talking about are at the flywheel. Have a bike that's making somewhere around 70 or 80 horsepower at the flywheel, maybe a little bit more, and have a bike that's a freaking riot. And the reason what's been driving me and pushing me into this mindset a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more is, let's all say it together now, the GSXR 750. You know what? We need to have a drinking game. Anytime I post a video on the GSXR 750, it's like, I don't know. That's like a trip, right? Like that's a 3-beer drink thing. Anytime I mention it in a video, it's like you got to take a sip. Yeah, it's a skip. Cheers. Anyway, you get the idea. Have I again drinking begin? Anyway, but the thing is that the more I ride that bike, the more I'm reminded that the cheat code of the quick shifter, there's that. There's you start to see all these motorcycles with active suspension and the TFT screens and all this other stuff, the connectivity. So Smoking Hot has got kind of a unique perspective on this. I've literally been looking over here. My camera is right over here on this phone. I do apologize. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, how much less hair do you have on your balls the further you go into this down this technology rabbit hole, right? Like, but you're going to rely on rider aids that really can't. Smoking Hot looks at rider aids the same way that a lot of people look at electric cars. Some people just inherently get the ick from electric cars because there's something inorganic about it. That's kind of how she views rider aids when I describe them to her. And so anyway, I was thinking about this and I was like, well, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but the reality. But I was looking at that Continental GT, and the more I've seen the spy shots of the new 750, the more it got me to thinking, look, that bike would be an absolute blast. I don't know really what I would do with it. I would love to figure out if there's like a vintage racing class that I could end up finding myself in. How cool would it be to go out on track with a bunch of other dudes that kind of are of the like mind? Like, we all are fast. Like, all of us that are in the group that I ride, the three of us that all ride together, we're all A-level ride group guys. But there's something more fun about riding a slow bike fast than there is about a fast bike fast. Because when you're riding a fast bike fast, that's work. You are at work. That is your profession at that point. Things are happening extremely quickly. There is no forgiveness. There is no do-overs with this. You hit your lines just right. You look through your corners. You do all of these things. Your field of vision, you are focusing on what you want to do. And with the slow bike, my gosh, man, when you're out playing around on a slow bike, it's a different level of fun. And that's why, for me, the GSXR 750, albeit not a slow bike, but in the company that bike keeps, it's nowhere near as powerful as a leader bike, the bike that I'm the most used to and the bike that I've kind of grown to be the most kind of bonded with and connected to. And so to experience that level of power, to experience that level of control through the throttle. Now, full stop, that motorcycle is piped and tuned. It's got a full M4 with a very good tune on it. And so that is adding to the riding experience of the 1000. But I got news for you, boys. That bike was a limp noodle when I first got it. All of these modern motorcycles are soft from the factory. They just are. That's just the way things go with these things. And so once it was de-restricted and it was running the way that it should, that bike is a completely different animal. Because when I've got that bike on the side of the tire, and let's say I'm going through one of the right-handers, and you always hear me, let's get her set up. That just, when I'm saying set up, I'm just setting up my line. And then you hear me go drop her in, maintenance throttle. What I'll do is, in those scenarios, when I'm saying drop her in, a lot of times you won't hear me talk about trail brake until I get to the next corner. But you'll hear me drop it in, maintenance throttle, power. When you hear me say power, I'm bringing the bike more upright as I'm feeding that throttle in. And where a de-restricted bike comes into play is when you start pouring the power in, you'll feel the 1000 just start to step out just as the back tire, you're planting the power. It's not getting weird. By the way, modern bikes are really good about holding lines, even under power, within reason. But you start pouring in the power, the bike starts to stand up and it rips. The 750, because it's not de-restricted and there's still a lot of nannies, I'm using the term loosely, it's electronic throttle tuning that needs to get sorted out. You just have this long flat spot. And so you end up feeling like you're trying to reel in a fish to get enough throttle in the thing to get it to move. My old 750 wasn't like that at all. I can promise you that. So anyway, once all of this is done, that'll be cool and it'll be a very old school raw sport bike experience. But what I kind of want is I want what my Bonneville isn't, or I want what my Bonneville would have been in reality, which is to say, you know, a little bit smaller, significantly lighter, more power, put it on a set of S22s and get out there and just kind of rip it with an old school frame, with an old school air-cooled motor. I just think that would be a freaking riot. And, you know, call me crazy, you know, these bikes, man, I'm telling you, it's like, they're like Pringles. You cannot have just one. But I think once I wrap up the GSXR 750, which by the way, the exhaust should be delivering sometime this week, and I'll get the computer back probably on Friday. Anyway, that thing will be a wrap here in about a week or two. And I'm going to be spending more time with the 1000. But I'm telling you, the more I look into that infield Continental GT, the more I really am kind of regretting not buying that green one. But I'm happy because they've got the new one coming out. But let me check in with you guys real quickly. And again, if you guys are new to the show, I do appreciate you swinging by. This is a take two. I don't know what happened on the first half of that. It's a live show, though. Weird stuff happens on lives, by the way. Here's something else. Nothing I ever do is scripted. I mean, I'll have an idea. There's a general outline, and there'll be a certain flow or a cadence to the videos that I put out. But guys, the main goal of my channel is to be as organic as it can possibly be. It's just me, you, we're hanging out at the shop talking bikes or whatever it is that we're talking about. So in all of my stuff is long form, and the only editing that I do is pause editing. But let me check in with you guys real quick. DM is in. What's going on? He's got the flex with the bald guy with the specs. I like it. Sam saying I still prefer carbs to EFI bikes. I do like carb bikes. Ryan is in. Ryan saying, well, I still have pulled the trigger on an infield yet, but the Gixxer got 203 miles on it now. Very nice. So mine has, want to say it's coming up on 400? Maybe 400, somewhere in that range, I think. Ryan's getting out there and having some fun with it. I like it. Ryan said, I'm going to wait on the infield GT 650 in green when it comes around. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Guys, look, you know, if you go back to that ride review that I did on the Royal Enfield Continental GT 650, I'm just having fun with that bike. DM said he likes the green. Skids is in. What is up? Ryan saying, hey, Skids, Professor, get a 92 Honda CBR 900 RR Fireblade. It has carbs. Funny you should mention that bike. A buddy of mine, that was one of the bikes he had mentioned too. He had one. I never rode that bike. I rode the 954. Now the 954 is carbureted. 954 is a hell of a bike, by the way. Tim's asking, quick question. What would you buy, a clean 2008 GSXR 1000 or a clean 2011 GSXR 750, both with 35,000 kilometers on them, which is going to check in Freedom units around 18,000, 19,000 miles. So in terms of US Americans, an '08 GSXR 1000 is going to check in. Man, I tell you what, here's the crazy thing. K5, 6, 7, and 8s, even up to 10, have been commanding some money lately. A lot of folks have got the nostalgia bug for that vintage of GSXR 1000 and R1s, by the way. The Repsol bikes are starting to get nuts. By the way, it's close to buying one very recently. If it's crazy clean with about 35,000 K on it, remember, okay, I'm going to say this, 6,500 bucks for the 1,000, 5,500 for the 750, if they are crazy clean, like, I mean, ridiculously clean. But remember though, the minute that you get those bikes, you're going to have to do a year 4 service on that bike. What is a year 4 service? A year 4 service is possibly tires, front and rear, brake lines, brake fluid, oil change, fluid swap, brake pads. Okay. You're going to be swapping out every fluid that those bikes have, everything that carries fluid. You may have to even, I doubt very seriously you'll have to mess with fuel lines, but you will want to take a look at all the rest of the components on that bike, and that can get real pricey real quickly. So if you see one that's got a lot of new parts on it, a lot of new consumable parts, because remember, lack of using, you don't want one that's got garage rot, because I've dealt with that on so many occasions, and I ought to put I used to put a thing together for guys when you were going to do an inspection on a car to pick it up. For the guys that were buying museum quality cars. And these are the cars that were some of the hardest on the pocketbook, not just because they were so good on the front end, because, I mean, we're talking, yeah, they were sitting in a museum, or they're sitting in somebody's garage, like not in a barn. Okay. I mean, a legit garage car, but all the rubber components, all the brake lines, every little thing has got to get replaced. So for any of those bikes, that's where I would be on that. Now the GSXR 750, the good thing about that bike is that parts are unbelievably easy to find. So I wouldn't mind a GSXR 750 from 2011, basically because the bike hasn't changed since 2011. So everything is available, and everything's available for the 1000 too. It's just that you can get so much stuff from the original manufacturer. But yeah, 65 for the GSXR 1000, 55, maybe even $5,000, cap that out for the 750, with the understanding that you're going to have about another $1,000 at least worth of stuff you're going to want to do to that bike. DM saying the old GPZs, great bikes, had an 86 ZX10, soft parent metal on cams. Yeah, that's what I heard, and rocker arms. But yeah, awesome bikes. Sam's looking for an old 2-stroke. Ryan saying GT 650 is peppy, buddy. Oh yeah, it is. Absolutely. Dude, that 650 was a lot of fun. The weird thing, again, if you go back and watch that video, one of the strange things about that bike is I found myself cruising on the highway at like 90 miles an hour on this thing, and no weird buffeting, good throttle response, power on reserve. The acceleration wasn't blinding, right? But when you see me getting onto the freeway, I'm just kind of humming the thing through the gears. And as I'm fanning that bike up onto the freeway, man, that's a fun motorcycle. And I was like, damn, dude, this is fun. This is, not for nothing, but it's okay to have fun on a motorcycle. It doesn't always have to be, so intense. It's one of the reasons why I like my 750 so much. Ron saying, you're describing my old Suzuki Katana, the 96. Good bike, by the way. Ryan saying, this year there's a Royal Enfield Build Train Race series. Really? DM's talking about the 711s. Which one was that one? Oh, in Overland, Kansas, there's a 2019 GSXR 750 with 8,500 miles on it for $9,000. Well, here's the thing. Depending on where you live, I am going to go out on a limb and say this. If you are in the market for a sport bike and you can buy new, you would probably be good to buy a new one. And it would be really good if you got a GSXR 600, 750, 1000. It's almost like you can't afford not to buy one of those bikes. I have seen later model versions of that bike, say like 2014, 15, 16. I've seen those bikes sell for 80% of their original sticker value today. Yeah. And I mean, it happens to happen all the time. So that's one of the reasons why I bought the Suzukis that I bought, is because look, you go Gixxer, it's so easy to just take a look at what these bikes will resell at. And oh, he's talking about the GSXR 750 with the 1100 motor shoehorned into it. That would be a monster. You know what's crazy? So when I was putting the video together for the GSXR 750, my first ride and review, the one that it was almost practically like the smart money was an immediate bet that I was going to get a 750 like really soon. When I did the ride and review on the GSXR 750, I mentioned in that video that that these newer bikes, and keep in mind, when I say newer GSXR 750, guys, the 70 mil motor, which is to say the 70 millimeter bore motor, came out in 2000, was it 2005 or 2006? Anyway, that engine, the 148 PS, the one that is everybody knows of today, that engine is going to be 20 years old next year. What? Yeah, I kid you not. The GSXR 750 engine is 6 years away. Sounds like a long time, and it really is. It is a long time, but it's a lot closer to literally being a classic than it is to not being a classic, right? So the GSXR 750 in that respect, man, it literally is it's a vintage bike by all accounts. Pretty cool, right? So when you look at it from that point of view, anyway, the point that I'm making with that though is that it's been the same for forever and a day. And what a lot of folks don't remember is that the K5 GSXR 1000 is derived from the original GSXR 750. And basically, it's a tall block version of a GSXR 750 with an overbore, a slight overbore, and a longer stroke. That's it. There ain't nothing else separating the 750 from the 1000. And what's really funny is that when you look at it from that point of view, it's little, you go, damn, I mean, look how far it's come, and so then the GSXR 1000 evolves into the 74 millimeter bore, and the GSXR 750 dropped to the 70 millimeter bore and got a little bit longer stroke. And that was the primary driver of that, was just to give it better mid throttle punch, but then it got neutered with all the electronic throttle valve actuator BS. And so now we're kind of back to square one. But anyway, I got to tell you, it's a lot of fun when you start to dissect that bike because, I had an '06. It had the cams, it had the exhaust, it had the power commander on it, and it was putting down 100 and I think it was averaging 132 to the rear tire. I think it had clipped 134 a couple of times, but I think that was really more weather related. But it was usually 131, 132 to the rear tire. And that bike with gearing of, what was it, 16 front, 47 rear? Anyway, that thing was a freaking riot to ride because it was aggressively geared, made really good power. And I never really had an issue dealing with leader class bikes, at least up in the mountains and on track. Now, on the street, well, after about fourth gear, we all knew what 1,000cc bike was going to do to that thing, but it really didn't matter because it is what it is. I mean, it's where I was living, top speed and all of that, just it wasn't going to benefit you the way that it does in other areas. So anyway, yeah, I missed that bike a lot. But anyway, I'm getting back to it. Got way off track, but if you watch that video, you'll find it real apparent when I'm probably going to get that bike. And it's right as I'm taking a right onto the freeway, right after I leave the dealership. I take that initial right, and you'll hear me go, "This is still the best," or whatever, however I say it. And I'm rolling into the throttle, and you may notice this in the helmet. I actually roll back just a little bit, sit back just a little bit, and the front end of the bike kind of comes up, and you'll see it do a little bit of a head shake. And I just pour the throttle to it and grab another gear. And I'm just going, ee! That's when I was like, all right. And yeah, the intake sound. You hear the intake do the snarl that the 750 does. And after that, it was just going shit. So here's the funny thing. There was another GSX-R 750Z, which is the blue bike. That bike was there that day. And not my bike now, but there was a blue bike there. And I looked at it and I thought, oh, there was a blue bike and a Captain America bike. And I was going, man, if I did get one, it'd have to be the blue one. And so I left, came back the next week. Captain America was being wheeled out front for its new owner to pick it up. And the blue bike sold the very next day. The black bike sold 2 weeks after I rode it. So it's why I say they sell every one of these bikes that they make. So whenever people go, well, the GSX-R 750, it needs a TFT screen and it needs a quick shifter and it needs all of this. Look, they sell every one of the bikes that they make. So one thing I would like, I have to admit, reluctantly, I would like to see him put a quick shifter on it. But, and this is a big deal for me, I don't want it to be a blipper on downshift. The bike doesn't need a downshift blipper. And I don't really like downshift blippers on bikes. The reason why, at least on the factory one, I'm going to try to explain this. I don't really have a good way to explain this. Okay, maybe this will help. If you can imagine this Sharpie being the shifter linkage on a GSX-R 1000, or really a lot of these bikes, there's a spring that will allow that. It's like a little plunger. It's a stress gauge. But the problem is on downshifts, there is a spring in there and it's spongy. If there was and I think Woolwich may make one. I know there's several other companies, but just a solid state stress gauge that only measures up. If I could find one like that, I would probably have it installed on the GSX-R 750. Maybe. But that's the only thing I would really want on that bike. And I only say it like that because the one on the 1000 works great and I think I figured out my problem with the quick shifter on that bike. That quick shifter works really well, I think, at least so far, as long as I'm over 5,000 RPM. If I'm under 5,000 RPM, I'll just grab a clutch shift because that thing just gets unnecessarily bobbly on not all the time, but in many occasions, if it does falter, it's going to falter down low. I don't even use it on that bike unless I'm above 5,000 RPM or so, and then it's fine. And I even think that the aftermarket kits, they all work well. They all work fine. It's just as long as you're over that 5 to 6,000 RPM number. I don't know why that is. It just kind of is what it is. I'll tell you what, the best quick shifter I've ever ridden, it's a freaking Hayabusa. Hands down, that is the best. It is so good. Brent's asking, have you ridden the GSX-S 1000 GX Sport touring bike? No, but it is coming, my friend. That is one of the bikes that I'll be riding along with. I've got to redo, I know, woe is me. I've got to redo the Hayabusa video, and I need to redo, if the bike is still there, the Tiger 1200 video. And that's kind of hard to do though, because whenever I don't ever redo a video. What happened was, on my camera rig, it's a chin mounts mount, and this adhesive right here got screwed up because the helmet was sitting, this is all my fault too. The helmet was sitting in my passenger seat, and I had to hit the brakes really hard. The helmet went flying and basically busted its face into my dashboard and ended up messing up that adhesive. Oh, the Indian Challenger. Yeah, in fact, that bike needs to be ridden too. So I need to get that bike on the road and get it down the street. That bike has been test ridden several times too. And I don't know, people just haven't bought it. And I don't know why, because it's a damn good looking bike. And I mean, for real good looking bike. I'll put to you like this. It's every bit as good looking as the Street Glide that I rode. So, there's that. But yeah, no, I want to do the Challenger for sure. I'll tell you this. That bike, this is the other thing. It's almost like my luck with riding that bike always seems to be kind of flatlined, because when I did pull it out to test it, it had a defective battery, or it had to have a new battery put in it. It wasn't like it could just be charged up. Something was going on there. And then the next time I went to ride it, somebody was test riding it. I went, oh, okay, cool. It looks like somebody's off on the Challenger. And then it came back, and for whatever reason, the guy didn't buy it. I think he bought another Indian though that was on the lot. I don't know which one he would have bought though, but I know he didn't buy that one. Or maybe he bought a Harley. Oh, that dude did buy a used Harley. In fact, he bought, was it the same dude? Anyway, I think that guy ended up buying one of the used Street Glides. He did not buy the Indian. But yeah, no, I want to get that Challenger out on the road for sure. If anything, at least it'll have a kickstand that doesn't try to kill you. But yeah, so anyway, guys, that's kind of where I'm at with these bikes lately. I've had and been having a lot of fun riding all of these bikes, and just being able to experience so many different types of bikes. Let's see, upcoming bikes that I cannot wait to bring you guys will be the 750 Hornet along with the 750 Transalp, which are two of the most popular bikes that are out there. The Hornet 750 looks to be the bike to dethrone the GSX 8R from that twins, the big bore twin type bikes, the parallel twin that the GSX 8R is. There's more than a few people that are saying the Hornet will absolutely work that GSX 8R. I would love to put that to the test. The Transalp, everybody that I've talked to that's ridden one has told me that if you ever get a chance to ride one, I have to ride one because I loved the V-Strom so much. They're saying that the Transalp is to the V-Strom as the Hornet, which shares the same engine. The Hornet 750 is to the GSX-8S, I should say. So we'll see. I'm looking forward again to putting those bikes through the ringer. But no, the GT is going to come. Crap, not the Rebel, but the other one. Anyway, the other Honda Cruiser, not the Fury, but that one. One I always forget. Anyway, that one is coming, and then maybe do some mini motos. I might try to grab a Dax and play around with that one. Maybe a Trail 125 or something, just to have some fun with it. But yeah, there are quite a few that I would like to do along the Shadow. God, why is it I can never, for whatever reason in my head, my thing, it flips it, and the first name that pops up in my head is the Honda Rogue. The Honda Rogue doesn't exist, but Shadow, for whatever, and it should be easy. I mean, eyeshadow. Anyway, I should know better, but anyway. Ryan's asking, can you get your hands on any Aprilia? Yes, there is a Tuono V4, non-factory, but there is one on the lot, and that one could be coming, although that one might, I don't know that, we'll see on that one. I'll just put it to you that way. But no, there is a V4 Tuono on the property, so I am really kind of hoping to get my hands on that one here really soon. In fact, what would be fun is to do, because I've already done the Hornet, the GSX-8S, and then the Tuono V4, kind of get an idea for which bike feels better. I can't really, it's hard to do a head-to-head type of a video because that would end up taking forever. Like I wouldn't be able to watch half of that video, but just to kind of get an idea for like an A/B, like a line of sight comparison, maybe do a post-ride review and talk about the bikes in that respect. So but no, there is one on premises. There are also some KLR 650s that are there. There is the V-Strom 1050s. There's a pair of those that were up there. Obviously the Hayabusa was there, but you got to be quick with those bikes, because even though they're kind of expensive on the used market, if you don't ride one, and you don't get the chance to ride one again for a while sometimes, because they sell pretty quickly. There is a clean, and I mean real clean, 22, the one that I rode. That bike, it's the real pretty dark gunmetal color, and it's all stock. And man, I got to tell you guys, there's something. Okay, look, the 1300 power plant is not a high rever at all. I mean, it's a 10,500 RPM engine, and really there's no sense in trying to wrap them out. Even the older bikes with velocity stacks and cams and all that are maybe 12,500 RPM bikes, right? So they're not real high revving, but man, they are torquey as hell everywhere. And you'd expect that. I mean, hell, it's, a full 33% bigger engine than, the freaking GSX-R 1000, right? Or 30%. Why did I say 33? Anyway, I must have been thinking about the 750 versus the 1000. Anyway, getting back to it, but it's the same size difference though, right? It's close enough to call it anyway, from 750, 1000 to the 1300 and the Hayabusa. And one of the things about that bike is that it is so strong at partial throttle. That motorcycle embodies the old adage, if you need wide open throttle, you don't have enough engine. Like, wide open throttle is like war emergency power, right? And that bike and it just freaking hums forward. And it's so smooth, and it is just so silky as far as how fast that bike goes. It's just crazy. So what you guys unfortunately didn't get a chance to see is when I was riding the Hayabusa, that spot where I'd go down, I'll hit that one stoplight, and that's my opportunity to kind of talk about first impressions. And I'm just shy of 6 feet tall, the 32-inch inseam, and okay, you'll hear me do that at that stoplight. I go through that and I get back onto the freeway and I start heading the other direction. Well, that's kind of a long right-hander that feeds into the freeway. And what sucks is that this was all lost in the video. I'm getting onto the freeway and I'm just I park it at about 3/4 throttle. And I'm just flying through the gears at about, I don't know, maybe 8,500 RPM on that bike. And it's not trying to carry the front tire, but it is kind of floating the front tire. And you would see it get a little bit of a head shake, which is completely expected. When you start getting the bike on the side of the tire, it's a little bit of an undulation in the road, like a little bit of like that. And so I'm just kind of buzzing through the gears and it starts to do that. And my initial response is to whack the throttle. And I'm at about 8,000 RPM on this. It goes da-da-da, and it start rolling into the throttle and it just kind of parks itself on the freeway. It just kind of goes like this. And I was just, oh my God, I love you. You're coming home with me. You will live with me now. And I'm just having so much fun with this Hayabusa. And again, guys, look, I get it. I understand. I'm kind of a whore when it comes to bikes. Now, I've never met a bike I didn't like, and I never met a bike that I didn't find something about it that I like. I have met motorcycles that I would not personally buy. I've even done reviews on bikes that I don't ever want to ride again, but I never rode one that I had a bad time on. It was just bikes that I was like, we're going to go in a different direction, but you did good, kid. So anyway, but yeah, the Hayabusa, when I got back with the bike, oh, I was so bummed out that the camera broke. But anyway, it was one of the more fun bikes that I got a chance to ride. And in that, hopefully I get a chance to ride that bike again. It's one of these things where you ride it and you get a chance to, like, they say don't ever meet your heroes, right? Don't ever meet the the folks that you look up to and all of that, because invariably they're going to let you down, right? They're just not. But the Hayabusa for me was a little bit different, because for me that bike was better than I had expected it to be. That bike not only lived up to my expectations, it was better than my expectations. And I just fell in love with the fact that this is a bike that everybody knows. It comes to the table with nothing but street cred, right? Its total reputation precedes it, but everything about it is just freaking cool. And that's what I like so much about that bike. So in that moment when I'm pouring the coal to it, and again, it got this cute little head shake. It's like, and I'm just, and I roll into the throttle and the bike just kind of, obviously it's a Hayabusa. It's not going to stand up, but this is top of third gear, and it just kind of came up a little bit and sat right back down as I was getting onto the freeway. And that's when I even gave the bike a hug. I was like, yeah. So anyway, that is the Okay, here's one for you. Full disclosure, it was a toss-up between the new GSX-R 750 and that Hayabusa. And as much as I loved that bike, I knew that the GSX-R 750, that's the buddy bike for me, right? And let's be real, guys, the price difference was significantly different, right? So if the Hayabusa would have been a little bit less expensive, it would have come home with me. But the reality is that none of those bikes are cheap, and that's why I went with that 750, and I have zero regrets on it. Right, saying Busa has military thrust mode. It does. DMC, B, did you just have a Goonies moment? Yes, I did. You're going to live with me now. Yep, I did. Truffle Shuffle. Ryan Zaplak, what's up, brother? Hope everything's going well. What in the wide world of sports is going on up in here? My man. Good to see you, brother. Don't be a stranger. DM said, I think B just quoted Chuck. You want to come home, come live with me now? Yep. No, seriously, listen. Guys, look, say what you will. As long as if you come into the Hayabusa without any unrealistic expectations, love you too, brother. Hope to hear from you soon, man. I know things are going great. I keep up, but holla. Our Zap's a guy we've known each other literally since we were kids. One of the best human beings on the planet. So big ups, our boy. But no, check this out. That bike is so much better than you think it's going to end up being. The quick shifter is great. It handles far better than you may imagine. The ride is so much better. The way that it feels. Here's one of the things about the Hayabusa that I really loved. And this is something that is crazy difficult to put into, like, you almost have to experience this. You sit in a Hayabusa. You don't sit on it, okay? So a GSXR 1000, you're really upright on that bike. You've got to be able to drop that bike in and do stuff like that. With the Hayabusa, it's a different story. You're definitely sitting more in that bike than anything else. Ryan's saying it's a freaking tank, but it's so nimble. It is. But with that, guys, Ryan, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate that. My man. Thank you very much, my friend. But with that, guys, check it out. We're coming up on an hour, and I've got to get back to work. Got an early morning. Listen, guys, appreciate each and every one of y'all. Say, go get a beer on me. You know I will. Listen, I got to get back to it. But again, I want to thank each and every one of you guys for hanging out. Would not do this without you. Hopefully, I get to bring you guys some updates here really soon on the GSXR 750 with the exhaust. Again, the computer should show up on Friday. Once that thing's together, looking forward to bringing you guys some sound clips. We'll do some decibel checks and all the rest of that. But with that, I'm going to check out. Y'all have a great one. Take care. Ryan, good seeing you, bud.